So hello and welcome. My name is Paula Robbins. I am the founder and creator of Consciouspreneurs International. And today I am here with my good friend, Don Hajicek. And I am excited to share in this particular interview because Don is an amazing photographer. And I just recently had my own photo shoot done, and I had it done because of some of the work I had seen with Don and a few of my other friends and colleagues. So I'm so glad that you're here. You have such a unique style, such an incredible eye and talent for being able to pull out some authentic intention and identity and facets for the people that you photograph. So thank you, Don. I'm so glad that you're here with me. Thank you for being willing to take this time.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome to be here with you again.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you're here. So first of all, you know, your images to me are just, they're captivating. They are not just a typical photograph. And I've noticed that with every single one of the photographs that I've seen published from you. You have an ability to really get an authentic energy, an authentic intention, to really show the personality and even spirit of the person that you're taking the photographs of. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you found this particular gift and, you know, maybe tell us a little bit about your background. How'd you get into photography? How did you realize that you have this eye to identify certain personality or spiritual or soul facets of the person that you're taking pictures of?
Yeah, so how I got into photography is a little bit longer, but I'll give you the short version of it is when I was young, I found my estranged father's camera in my mother's closet and started playing with that. So that's the short version. I started photographing people in 2005, and it was because I had some of my travel photography featured in a gallery, the Center for Fine Arts Photography, and it felt really good. My ego got a good ego stroke to have some stuff on the wall at this gallery. And so I signed up for their mailing list for calls for entries so I could try to have more stuff and more shows. And actually the very next call for entries they had, the theme was Landscapes of Desire. And here I had been doing landscapes for most of my adult life, just on the side as an amateur. And I thought, Landscapes of Desire, what's that going to look like? Like, what kind of ideas could I come up with for this? So I started photographing people and combining them with landscapes, just trying something out. And none of the work got into the show. It wasn't that great. But what I found was that the people were really responding to the work. And I wasn't advertising at all, but they started all telling their friends about, oh, there's this guy doing these pictures and you really need to work with him. And honestly, I wasn't getting it. And it took me a long time to get it, what the people I was photographing were experiencing. And it was just how I was in the sessions. I don't know of a better way to explain that, except to say that I kind of put my flag in the ground and say that this all started 15 years ago, because right around that time, it was like the friend of one of the people that I had photographed contacted me and wanted me to do a boudoir photo session for her. And so we had this thing all scheduled. But the night before we were supposed to have this photo session, I got an email from her. And the subject line was, I need to ask you a question. And she said, it was 4 sentences. I'm a breast cancer survivor. I've had a double mastectomy. I don't feel like a woman anymore. And then her question was, do you still want to do this? Like, did I still want to have this photo session? And in the moment, I asked myself, do I still want to do this photo session? Can I do this photo session? And the reason that I asked myself that question is just 2 years prior to receiving that email from her, my mother had a double mastectomy and she did not survive. She passed away about 6 months after that. So as you can imagine, I'm sure this whole exchange brought up loads of stuff for me too. And I had all these things to sift through. But as I sifted through the avalanche of feelings and thoughts in my head, I realized if I told this woman, her name is Sarah, if I told Sarah, no, I don't want to do this anymore, right? I would have been confirming for her what she said her fear was, that she wasn't a woman anymore. And I thought to myself, was my mother any less of a woman from the time of her double mastectomy until the time of her death? And the answer was no. And so I responded to Sarah and I said, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Not knowing what I was going to do, or, I felt pressure because she wasn't asking me for something that I knew that I could do. She wasn't asking me for beautiful photographs. It was something I knew that I could provide for people. She was asking me for something way more profound than that.
Yeah.
And it was right there in the email. It was, I don't feel like a woman anymore. Can you help me? Like, that was the question. And so I walked into the session. It was at a hotel. And as I was taking the photographs and I'm looking at the back of the camera, and I realized that I was seeing her through really a new lens. It was a new lens to me, or one that I was just discovering. And this is a lens of non-judgment and a lens of compassion, and what I now refer to as the lens of love. And it was being so invested in her outcome, right? Like, there was nothing I wanted more on the planet in those moments than for her to see these photographs and go, there I am.
Yeah.
I'm still all of this. And when she saw the photographs, she saw herself as beautiful and sexy and all these things, but she saw herself as a woman. And that was really, I'm going to say the turning point for me, even though I didn't fully recognize the power of what was going on for honestly, another 7 years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2012, this had happened to me dozens of times from 2005 to 2012. But in 2012, I took a public speaking course and I started telling people about these experiences I was having with my clients. And oh my gosh, everything just fell together because everyone saw this thing that was going on, which then I started to go, oh, so I'm not supposed to be a wedding photographer or a fashion photographer or a boudoir photographer or a portrait photographer or any of these other niches that I was playing in. It was really about the why of the work. Like, why? What does this person want to recover or see again? And my job is not to do anything other than to be the witness. So I'm not really, I'm not teaching anyone anything. I'm guiding, of course, to some extent, but this is more about witnessing. And
Well,
that's
I mean, as
how I got into it.
it's to be one of your clients and to have had the experience of working with you now. It wasn't just the photographs that attracted me to it. It was a clear, intuitive knowing this is someone who can capture a deeper aspect of authenticity in somebody. And with the work that I do, working with other conscious-minded entrepreneurs, working as a trauma specialist and a healer and metaphysician with people one-on-one, I really want to portray, a lot of who I authentically am so they can see my soul and my spirit in a photograph. And I've had a few photo shoots over the years, and this one was just by far the most unique and the most it was an incredible experience. And it started with the preparation work. So I knew that I wanted to work with you, and I knew that I wanted to get a shot, a photo shoot set up. But what I didn't know by setting it up, that there was going to be some preparation work. So this was really cool. So for me, there was the conversation that we had about the shoot. There was the video that you shared. about the difference between like a typical headshot, like a yearbook picture, Olin Mills picture,
Mhm.
and a picture that really shows who you are as a person, as a professional, depending upon your intention for the photographs.
Mhm.
And that video was really, really eye-opening. And then, of course, there's the worksheet, which was really just an incredible inner experience to go through and ask myself even these questions, because, you talk about the facets that you really want to show in the photographs. So just as a quick snapshot for those who are watching or listening, what are the three things that anyone should probably do to prepare for a photo shoot, regardless of the intention of the shoot? But what are some of the things that you recommend? Because it's so unique to you, but yet so valuable.
Yeah. Um, the way that I would answer this question is first, I want to separate what you can control from what you can't really control. Because the way that the first thing I want people to do as they prepare for any photo session is to be able to distinguish between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you choose a photographer because you like their work, um, you really don't want to get too much into trying to steer their work in a different direction. So choosing a photographer whose work you like and you're willing to surrender to is really important, because trust is absolutely necessary in this work, especially if you want to let things come forward that maybe in other areas of your life, professionally especially, you may be a little bit more hesitant to just let it come forward. And I know that um, when I have this conversation with my clients, power comes up a lot, which may seem counterintuitive if it's someone who's running a business and they may even be on stages everywhere. But letting the power show up is actually can be quite a challenge for people. So having a photographer you trust is probably number one. Number two, preparing yourself by meditating and things like that so that you can really surrender, like surrendering to the photo session. By the time you step into, whether it's a studio or outside or things like that, by the time you get there, you really want to just know that you're in the hands of someone that will just take you the rest of the way, right? Um, Without you having to like make a lot of decisions and things like that. So getting yourself in a position where you're willing to just let go and let this thing unfold as you know it should is super important. And then number three, I would say, is to have a message in your mind that you want to convey to if this is for business, to your potential clients. Because really, when people are looking at your photographs on your website, you're communicating with them. And you're communicating with them when you are looking at the lens of the camera, which is why it's important to get to that point of trust and surrender and to know what it is you want to communicate. Because you will be communicating to your potential clients when you're looking at the lens of that camera, whether you like it or not. So it's better to be in a spot where you're like, you know what? I've got what you're looking for, and I can deliver this to you, and you can trust me, and I'm powerful, and I'm approachable, or whatever those things are for you that you want to have come through, to know what they are before the session. And what the real gift of all of this is, I think, is that you can bring all of those things to the session without the photographer you're working with knowing anything about this stuff,
Right.
because you're bringing it. You're bringing your A game. So these are things that you can absolutely control, even if that person just has no clue. If you are grounded and you are prepared and you have a message for your ideal clients, unless the photograph is taken at the wrong moments, I suppose would be the big thing. Um, it'll come across. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I totally feel that it did. And those were, you know, choosing a photographer that you trust. For me, that was based on just looking at the images of people that I know and
Right.
seeing the facets and authenticity of these people. The second piece, the surrendering to the process, and really just like, okay, I'm gonna go do this too. I'm gonna do my best to just really allow myself to be present for however Don takes the pictures. And then the preparation piece. There was the conversation, there was the worksheet, there was the meditation prior to, there was getting a little bit more clear in my mind. What are the facets that I want to convey in my photographs? And those three pieces really did, I think, make for just one. It was a really fun photo shoot. And the pictures that I've seen so far, because we just did the shoot a few days ago, I really love. And I think that they really do capture a lot of my authenticity and who I am and what I was trying to convey. And that leads me to a conversation that we had in another question. You know, we talked about, you know, some of the people that you've worked with who don't really know precisely what are the facets of themselves, what are the intentions or the energy that they want to convey in their photographs. And one, I think that this is very intuitive and instinctual for you, first of all. I think that you're just able to pull that out because you can see a lot of what a soul carries when you meet them and communicate with them and get to know them. But when you've worked with somebody who wasn't really sure on the facets that they want to convey, how were you able to kind of overcome that? How were you able to bring them to that state of trust and surrender to their own message?
Right. You know, it's a different conversation with every single person that I work with. There are overarching themes that I have in mind when I'm communicating with someone, but I've worked with now in the last 8 years over 700 women, and it's been more than 1,000 photo sessions in that time. And I can say that every single one of those conversations was different. But it's conversation, you know, it's me being invested in what they're going through in that moment. I speak at a lot of events, and then I work with the participants at the event that choose to work with me. And so they come into the studio. I'm not exaggerating. 95% of the time, there are tears and, you know, shaking hands and things like hands shaking, not shaking hands. Their hands are shaking, they're crying, coming into the session because it's the most confronting, terrifying thing that perhaps they've done in a long time. And I've had, you know, people say that they were afraid because they had a portrait session. This was actually something that happened early on in my career. A woman was crying, and she said that she had had a professional photo session done like 5 years previous. And halfway through that session, the photographer stopped and said, "I can't take your pictures. We have to cancel the session because you're just so unphotogenic." You can believe that that actually came out of someone's mouth to someone else. And since that moment, of course, she's been terrified to be photographed and has been avoiding cell phones and everything else in all that 5 years, right?
Wow.
So she's standing there in tears, and I mean, the thing that's lovely to me is that she's hired me at this point, right? So she knows this is a place where she can finally confront that feeling of not being photogenic.
Yeah.
But it's in that conversation, the way I remember it happening was just me knowing. And by the way, I will side note my book Being Seen. Her photograph is on the cover of that book. The person who was afraid to have her photograph taken due to not being photogenic is the cover of my book.
How cool is that?
And in part, it's just me knowing that this is going to work. Like just that much, just them being able to look me in the eye and me to know, honestly, this is going to work, gets them very far, because they know I'm not kidding around about this work, because this is my life.
Sure.
And so the vote, I guess you could call it a vote of confidence. That's not how I'm looking at it from my end. But then seeing that I know, yeah, let's go do this thing together. That really seems to be the crux of the conversations that I have. There was there was a conversation maybe 3 years ago where, again, the client was shaking and kind of tearful, and I asked her if there was anything she wanted to share with me. And she said, "This is the first time I've been alone in a room with a man since I was sexually assaulted," which was some years prior to that. And in that moment, right, I need her to know you're in the right place, you're in a safe place, and yeah, let's go do this thing together. Let's go find this piece of yourself that you're looking for. Like, it's me knowing that that's going to happen that gets them to the point where they can then unleash that part of themselves or unveil that part of themselves or release that part of themselves. And it's cathartic. And by the end of the session, there's usually more tears, but this time it's just because they're so happy that they've gone through it. Yeah, it's
That's
just
awesome. I
it's
mean,
how it unfolds.
both amazing stories. And I think what they both, to summarize in my mindset, as somebody who's worked with many, many entrepreneurs of consciousness, and this is such a consciousness message,
Mm-hmm.
when we trust ourselves, that is, yeah, I mean, I trust my work. I love my work. I love what I do. And I think that that is conveyed with each of the individuals that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
which allows them to trust the process in working with me. I mean, that is such a critical factor. You knew that each of these individuals that you're working with is going to have an outcome that is authentic, that is going to show who they are. So just an excellent example. I love both of those stories. That's cool.
Thank you. It's been in those 700 women, it's been 700 different stories along that continuum somewhere. So,
I can
yeah.
only imagine because, having your photograph taken, it can be such an intimate experience. You're looking at conveying to a lens, who am I? What is my message? And at the same time, there's a person behind that lens that is the one who is looking at you. There's someone looking at you. So I think that's where it can be intimidating and it can be so intimate, but at the same time, your track record precedes you. You are trusted. You do have just a beautiful collection of amazing images and stories and people that you've impacted in such a positive way. So, as you go forward, as a conscious entrepreneur, from my perspective, your message is show yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What would be a piece of advice that you could offer to other conscious entrepreneurs as you walk your own path? What have you learned?
Yeah. So, as far as what I've learned, um, blind spots are a big thing. And my blind spot going into all of this was around being seen myself, because I was asking my clients, I'm talking about previous to 8 years ago when I started really doing this work. I was still asking my clients or expecting my clients to allow themselves to be seen, but I was hiding while I was doing it. And until I was willing to really step out in front of this work, because my clients heard these stories all the time, but they never heard them until after their sessions were over, because maybe we never had a conversation until, during their photo session was in some cases the first time we really talked. So me being willing to get on stages, and now I've been on stages all over the planet now, from Australia and Morocco and Europe and all over the United States. And until I was willing to get out front, which was unbelievably hard for me. It would be impossible for me to describe how hard it was for me to get on a stage the first time, because public speaking was absolutely my number one fear. It was almost to a phobia level to be looked at while I was talking about things. So to actually be able to get up on the stage knowing that the work that I was doing and the relief that it was providing to people was more important than the discomfort that I felt stepping on the stage. So what conscious entrepreneurs are really bringing to the world, it's important. And you have these gifts, And to share those gifts, to really be willing to stand up and be seen, was a lesson I had to learn myself before I could really start doing this work in a meaningful way. So showing up, being willing to, like you said, show yourself,
Right.
to be seen, to shine your light, and to be willing to shine it brightly enough for people to go, oh, this person may have something that I need. There's something about this person I need to know more about the work that he or she is doing. And because that's how you are providing good in the world and relief in the world, or better relationships or more money or whatever the outcome of the work you're doing with these people is. It's important. And standing up and saying, here I am, let's do this,
Mhm.
is was a blind spot for me. And now I see its importance.
I can completely agree. It's still one that I can often go back and forth with. You know, I've spoken on many stages. I've been in many interviews. I've conducted many interviews. I've created numerous videos now and created an entire academy of coursework online. And at the same time, there's moments when I just withdraw and don't necessarily want to be out there. I mean, you know, I'm just now kind of getting back out there after some of the significant transitions and changes in my own life. So I totally get that, and I totally agree. When we are seen, when we are willing to show ourselves, that is when we are making an impact in the world. That is when we are really raising the consciousness and sharing, not only in the gifts, but the way that these gifts impact others in a positive way. So
Mhm.
great response.
And it's
So,
work. And these days, and I'm in the same boat. I'm sort of reemerging after
yeah,
what the way things have been going so far this year. So it's always work, but sometimes it's harder work, but you just have to keep going at it and going at it because your message is important and worth sharing,
I
right?
agree.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, when you choose to walk a professional path of living from your heart, the only way to do that is to put your heart out there, and that's showing yourself. So tell us what you're up to. Tell us how to find you. I mean, what are the current, endeavors that you're really promoting and working on as you are reemerging? Is it
Yeah.
photography sessions? Is it the book? What are you hoping for people to find you?
Well, there's definitely a second book in the works, and this is all kind of related because as I've been doing this work, and as I've been getting on more and more stages, and as I've been even having my own events and things like that, I'm finding how this work is implemented outside of photography, of course, because everything I've been talking about so far is not just this is preparation for photography. This is really preparation for life,
Yeah.
preparation for anything that you want to get to in your life. So um, I've had people hiring me outside of the photographic realm or in addition to the photographic realm or in relationships and things like that, because there's also, masculine, feminine, whatever words you want to give it, um, implementations of this work. And so that's been going on. When our current situation first started and you really couldn't be around other people, I started sort of doing more web design work, which was I designed my first website in 1994. So this is something that I've been kind of doing on the side along with the photography. I've recently changed my pricing just to make it more accessible to people. I've spent the last 8 years honestly traveling the world pretty much nonstop, and certainly the last 18 months prior to this spring doing that. Now that I'm not doing all of that travel, I can make the work a little bit more accessible to people who are local to me in Colorado, or I've driven to Texas this year. I'm driving to DC in September to do sessions. So people are still within, striking distance. But tribeofdiamonds.com is my website, and I talk more about the work there. There's more videos of my talks, or um, there's one presentation I did specifically for the emerging process, which I think is really important right now. I mean, I don't know how everyone else feels, but when I'm seeing all the masked people around me, including myself, I'm really craving seeing faces because honestly, like
I completely agree.
I'm an introvert, but I adore people. I love people so much. And when I'm on an airplane or on the shuttle between the parking lot and the airport or the train at the airport, and I see all these faces or saw all these faces, I'm literally seeing what these people are going through right now. And I don't know if it's something I've always assumed everybody had, but I don't know if I'm just more in tune than most. But and I'm like, you know, I want to photograph this person. They look like they're going through some stuff. So,
Right. No, I can see that easily.
being restricted to, at the moment anyway, mostly just people's eyes, I'm still kind of like, oh, like looking for that thing. So anyway, short version is I just want to work with as many people as possible because it is food for me too, to just be able to look at someone's glorious face and capture them through photography and video. So I've made that a little more accessible now.
Great.
And I've got a studio actually in Fort Collins, which I got right towards the end of the year last end of the year last year, and using that is really good. So doing portraits in the studio. There's definitely another book coming, as I mentioned, and I'm doing a lot more video work these days too. People are really responding to some of the videos I've done. There's a YouTube video I've got out there called "Once There Was a Girl," and that's got something approaching 110,000 views. And
Cool.
can I tell one more quick story? This is just something
Sure.
like specifically from that video. I had a woman contact me last year, the year before, and she said, so I want to order your book, but I was just curious about shipping because I really need it to get here before next week. And so we had this conversation around logistics. And I said, just out of curiosity, like, how did you find out about the book? And she said, well, it's for my daughter's birthday. It's her 13th birthday. And she told me that this book was the only thing she really cared about getting for her birthday. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. That's not exactly my target audience, even though I'm starting to like, my work is starting to actually flow towards youth. And I think that's happening as a response to social media culture. But instead of getting into that conversation, I'll finish the story. And I was like, I would be fascinated to know how your 13-year-old, or actually in that moment, 12-year-old daughter came across this video, which was a trailer for my book. And she said they had just moved to a new town. Her daughter's very introverted, was having a hard time making new friends at school. And so she would retreat to her room every evening and pull out her phone and just watch YouTube videos all evening as like her way to be entertained. And my video for my book came up as like an interstitial, like a between videos. They have to watch the first 15 seconds of the video or something on YouTube. And she was like, Mom, I think this book is exactly what I need. And it's called Being Seen, and it's all about everything we've been talking about. And so, yeah, so her daughter got this book for her 13th birthday, and I just thought that was the most fascinating thing.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean, everything is around this message, and this message goes well beyond photography and well beyond working with
Yeah.
me, specifically one-on-one. And so one of the other things I've been working on now is the course for Being Seen. And so this will be a video course that'll be out sometime in the next couple of weeks, actually. So stay tuned for that.
Great.
It'll be on my website.
Oh, great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Gosh, I'm going to put that on the content language for our conversation. It'll have your website. I'll put a link to the YouTube video and a link to the book so people can find all of those things and find you. And I'm glad I found you. I've just so enjoyed working with you, and I love your message. You've got just a powerful consciousness and an ability to impact people in a positive way. So again, just thank you so much for
I'm
sharing this.
glad I found you too, and I'm glad I'm hiring you to help me put my course together. So
I'm
yeah,
excited to do it. That's cool.
investing in people that we trust and know, right? So
Right. Absolutely. So, well, great. Well, thank you again. You'll see your information wherever I post this interview. And it was so great to chat with you. I'm just so honored to know you. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Don Hajicek with Tribe of Diamonds.